Hey everybody, I'm Rousseau. I do a little work here and there, and it looks like we're back in the Ready Ward. This time, finally, to talk about making books. Because, as you may have seen before, and, as you're seeing now, here at Rousseau Works, we have made books large and small, but we've never explained any part of it. How rude. It is a large topic, so, you gotta break it up into pieces. This piece being perhaps the most important piece, that is the paper part of the book, the part that you write on, or that is already written on, depends on whether you made the book or not. So we're gonna try to live up to the title and get just up to the point where we can call this basic bookbinding, or basically bookbinding. So yeah, paper part. Here I have 4 pieces of US letter size paper, and this is Georgia Pacific 20-pound standard paper, and we're going for basic, so we're going to need to single out a sheet and fold it in half the long way, and that's easy enough. Just line it up corner to corner, press the opposite edge, making sure it is nice and flat, then fold it around the other way and press it again, and that should give you a pretty good line to use as reference for cutting. And once you have those 2 half pages, you can fold them in half long ways to make some things that are vaguely book shaped. You put one of them inside of the other one, and on and so forth, until you have as many pages as you would like in that section. Of course, one thing you will notice if you look at the edges is that there's a bit of a hump there, and that's caused by the stacking of the paper, though we won't worry about it right now. First, we got to think about poking some holes, and for that I think I'm going to need my little tomato chili pepper friend. So, specialized tools here. Moving on, placement of the holes is, semi-important. Really, I'm just looking for equal placement and an equal number of holes. Here I have a section with the holes already poked, as it were, and I could, if I were crazy, use this section as a guide to poke holes in, other sections. And while I may not be crazy, I may be lazy, so we may see some issues crop up from that later on. That being said, I will use Friend Tomato as a backing material to poke that hole, and yeah, sure enough, it didn't line up perfectly from top to bottom, but it's pretty well on the line, so I'm happy with that. I just need to poke holes the rest of the way down, and then this section will be ready for stitching. And I won't bore you with most of that, but I will show you this mess and sort of explain the idea behind this. So, as you can imagine, you start at one side, you go to the other side, and you snake back and forth, and you've taken measures to ensure that these holes should be lined up from section to section. So, you start on the outside, and you go around the first 2 holes, and around and out the second hole, and the first section is fine on like that, in and around and out, in and around and out, in and around and out. Then you go into the bottom of the second one and work your way to the top. But after that, once you're past the first section, you're going to want to start tying these sections together. And how often you do that, I suppose, is really up to you. But you do have to do it at least at the ends. Or, I suppose you wouldn't, but we'll get to that in a minute. And take this time to mention that what I'm using for thread here is just thread. It's from a sewing kit. It's the same place the needle came from. And because the strength of that thread is, an unknown, I've made sure to double it in all of the areas where it goes on the insides of the sections, and I've tried to space these 3 areas as evenly as possible. I don't know how good this is, but I figure I'll know if it falls apart. The areas between the sections here are still loose, but as I mentioned, this is an issue that can be cleared up in a couple of ways. One, just tightening the string, but that can be a difficult prospect because you got to tighten the string all the way back. It's like those cube snake puzzles. Or 2, we could just wait, and I will attach the final section, and we can do a final inspection before, all the other stuff that needs done. So there you can see the stitched side, and yeah, that could be a lot better, as evidenced by the other side, which has quite the overhang. So what I would do, not now, but at a later point, is take a razor blade like this one, and just cut away all of those overhanging edges. Of course, like I said, I'm not going to do it right now, because a few other, messy things need to be done first. So before we do any cutting, we're going to have to press the text block and glue the back end of it. And that's going to do a few things. One, it'll keep the spine from twisting so easily, but two, it'll fix all those gaps we saw. And while I don't have footage of me putting white glue on the back of the thing, I do have this, which is a couple of sticks. Or I guess you can't really call them sticks. It's a couple pieces of wood from a piece of furniture that was taken apart. I put rubber bands around those, pry it apart, and stick some paper inside, and then I can put glue all over it. Of course, there is an extra element, which is a piece of cloth, and that gets mushed in the glue at the same time, and it will later also get glued to the cover of the book, and then another piece of paper will get glued from the cover to the first page of the book. But covers, that's a different video for a different day. So, the text block, how did it turn out? Well, we ran into a few more issues. One with the glue and the press and the piece of cloth. That being, the cloth has to stick out the top of the press, at least in this design. Otherwise, it just gets glued to the first and last page. And, that's unfortunate, but it's something we can work with, and I think it'll be fine. Of course, as I mentioned in the Rack and Tear Weekly, I have a couple other text blocks that I've printed lined paper, and I've taken additional efforts to ensure that the edges of the book don't have those humps. The blank text block, I had to go through section by section and cut those humps off by hand. That's most of the reason why that last section looked like it was sticking out so bad. Of course, now you see it's fine. These two text blocks had each subsequent sheet of paper made just the slightest bit narrower when they were cut out originally, so that seems to have worked out, and I managed to get the cloth not to stick to the first page. Very nice. So yeah, the inside of these two text blocks is virtually the same. Beginnings and ends are sort of a rip-off of a gold fiber planner, just with less boxes. And the design from the large one to the small one is a little different, but in essence it's the same. Then the center sections are 5mm square graph paper. So yeah, just more squares on the larger one, same square size in both cases. And in all, I think I'm really taken with the smaller sized one. And these are nice. Or they will be nice when they have covers. But there are problems with them. The small one, well, there's a lot of waste there. So, in addition to making covers, I do think that an exploration of other styles of book binding is in order, and reducing waste is a top priority. I mean, look, I'm keeping it. Who knows when you're going to need a strip of paper, but these are the borders just from printing those small pages. I mean, if you're going to print pages, then you have to print them two-sided, and, well, printers have problems, so printing those things two-sided is something else we're going to have to talk about before too long. But it is not at all efficient. But yeah, lots to think about. So that's what I'm going to do. Think about it. And I suggest you do the same. And until next time, you've been watching The Ready Ward on Russo Works, and I'm Rousseau. Out.